Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary Podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. Hey there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you're at. I thank you for letting me pop into your earbuds. Have you heard of McKay? She's absolutely lovely. She's not just another talented photographer. Michelle is also a wordsmith. She makes you feel something with her words. You've got to check out her site. She's also quite brilliant in how she's marketed her business so far. And one thing I especially love about her is that she eagerly, openly and freely shares her wisdom with us, not just in this episode here, but in the photography community in general. She's always showing up and sharing for no other reason than just to share. And I love that. So we're focused on business today in this episode. So there's no mini mag, but I want you to check out the show notes at fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast to see her two iconic photo submissions that she submitted. They're very different pictures, but they both evoke something from her, which I'll tell you about in just a sec. And then there's also links to the promotions that she shares with us in here. Not promotions to you selling you something, but these are examples of promotions that she's ran in her business with huge success. If you're not in business, still listen in. I mean, you can even jump through if you want a little bit, because around 17 minutes in, Michelle and I talk about what happens when you print your photos and the surprising, unexpected, wonderful effects that hanging photos on your walls has on your kiddos. This was a surprise to both of us that we found when we started printing as a selfish act that delightfully turned selfless. Specifically in this episode, we talk about going from being scared to spend on an expensive camera in the beginning to starting a business. And I really love her reason behind starting that's different than what I hear often from other photographers. And we talk about her first steps in getting her first clients. She hasn't been in business all that long, so all of this is still fresh and new, and a lot of wisdom here for you. She shares her genius marketing moves that she has rocked through Instagram and in her new community. Yes, she actually moved while in the beginning stages of her business and worked with that instead of letting that be a setback or an excuse. Then we talk about how working with a local business store once at a discount has brought in a wave of clients. And then we talk about the print on your walls and what that does for your kiddos and the ins and outs of that promotion I was talking about that literally filled up her whole winter season. And it was so great that she used it as inspiration to change her business model. Gosh, there's so much stuff in here. We also talk about how she's built an open, trusting, helpful, genuine relationship with her social media following. And of course, I ask her like all the details there. And then we wrap up talking about those two different iconic photos that share a similar purpose as a reminder she needs frequently. And I'm just like nodding over here in the me too kind of a way, because I swear her and I are kindred hearts, I tell you. So enjoy. So hi, Michelle. I am really excited to chat with you. I honestly, every time I see something that you share, whether it's a picture or your beautiful words, the thoughts behind them, I think that sometimes we run such a parallel life with some of our past experiences and the way that we feel towards photography. So truly, I'm like gushing over here over you because I'm just excited to talk to you. Can you, before we get into some of the stuff that we are going to talk about, give us a little background on who you are and where you're from and when you started your business and anything else that you want to share?
Sure. Okay. So I am in Australia, currently living in Geelong. Um, I started photography when my daughter was a baby, my firstborn. Um, Previous to her coming along, I was a school teacher. I was an English high school teacher, and then I was a college um, teacher teaching sort of English as a second language for kids transitioning from other countries into Monash University over here. And then when my daughter was born, I just sort of felt this compulsion to record every single moment of her life. And I spent the first 9 months doing that using my iPhone.
Hmm.
Um, so I have a whole lot of really terrible photographs of my daughter with a whole variation of Instagram filters smacked over the top. um, but I couldn't help myself. I would photograph her all the time because I didn't want to miss anything, and I felt like time was running away and it was all happening too quickly. And it reached a point, sort of when she was about 9 months old, that my husband suggested, "Why don't you get a real camera?" And it's not really a purchase that I ever would have thought of to invest in for myself, because it felt like such a high end purchase, for something that I'd never sort of done before. But he suggested it, and then he suggested it again, and he kept talking about it until I was brave enough to spend the big bucks and get myself my first DSLR and a 50 millimeter prime lens. And I just didn't look back from that point. I was just obsessed, and I've been obsessed ever since. I shoot almost every day. The only thing that keeps me from shooting now, ironically, is my photography business.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just, it's so much time that it takes to run a business. I guess I started photography in a very organic way, in the sense that I really was doing it just to document my own family, and didn't really occur to me about beginning a business until I got to a point where shooting my own family wasn't necessarily enough for me anymore. I wasn't satisfied. I needed more people to shoot and more environments to shoot in, and I needed, I'd hang out with my buddies, and I'd take my camera and I'd spend, an hour photographing their children, and them interacting with their children, and all the children interacting together. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. And then it wasn't until a little while longer after I'd been shooting for friends that someone suggested to me that I could make it into a business, and it hadn't occurred to me before that. And I wasn't in a rush to make it a business. I really wanted to, I don't know, I have to be the best at, I have to feel like I'm my best before I could, sort of even consider charging for it. So I very much took my time in turning it into a business. But I'm so glad that I did, in the sense that I had a lot of clarity about what I wanted it to be and who I was as a photographer before I even sort of delved into that professional realm. So I'm still obviously navigating my way through that. But yeah, I feel like for how long I've been doing it for. So I sort of only started in any sort of professional capacity maybe last June, I think. I did my first charged session, and I'm loving it.
I have to
So,
say, I thought you were shooting a lot longer. I look at your work and I'm like, that's it. You're so talented.
oh, thank you so much. I have fit a lot of shooting into that time frame.
Yeah. I love the part that you said that you got to this point where shooting your family wasn't enough and you wanted more.
Yeah.
When you were leading up to that part, I really thought you were going to say, I started sharing on social media and people were loving my work. And so I thought, maybe I should start a business. But you were really hungry for more without really thinking of.
Yeah, it's an artistic hunger to get into more people's lives, and
That's so
I'm a
cool.
bit of a voyeurist, I guess. I'm very fascinated with the way people live and what it looks like, and the challenge of making something beautiful and artistic out of what is already there.
Right. Yeah.
Because then you've got this art that's just so much more meaningful. It's garbage day here. Sorry, can you hear that?
A little, but that's okay. That's all right. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. So when you started your business, I would love to know. I didn't even actually think about talking about this, but now, since it's so fresh, what were your first steps when you were like, okay, I want to start charging for this? What were your first steps to get your first clients?
Yeah, so I guess I made a website, and from there it's sort of just because before that I had my Facebook and Instagram for quite a while before that, and I was thinking that I could sort of not have a website, but it was really interesting the way that setting up the website and setting up the blog probably was the bigger one for me, really created this cascade effect where everything started falling into place. And I don't know if that was a mental thing or if that really is the power of a website. I'm not really sure, but I'd had a fairly strong Facebook following previous to that. Not necessarily all in the area that I live in, but I'd recently sort of moved to Geelong from Queensland, so I'm in Victoria now. So we moved states, and I didn't know anybody here. Previous to moving, I sort of started reaching out on Instagram as a social media channel to other creatives who I could see were in Geelong. And I found that really useful. In fact, one of my very bestest friends now is a woman who I met who runs a handmade clothing business here in Geelong. I've met quite a number of super lovely humans that way. So I came here and sort of started meeting a network of creative-minded people that I'd met through social media otherwise. And that sort of it fostered a lot of connections in the real world.
God, that makes total sense. That is so smart. I don't know if I would have thought to reach out to other creatives through Instagram like that. I love that. I was just looking on our blog because you had published a beautiful story photographing a moving story and thoughts on memories. We published this story March 2017. So when was it when you moved?
We moved in late December.
Okay, so a few months prior.
2016, yeah.
You were in business of like 6 months, if not less, and then it was, all right, we're moving to somewhere new.
Well, I hadn't actually started a business at all yet. I was just myself and friends then. I didn't start.
Right, because you've been since June. Yeah.
And
my years all mixed up. Okay. Wow. So how did you, one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you, I noticed, well, there's so many things, but one of the things that I saw is that you have created a really great relationship with a gelato business that's local to you, and you've done several shoots for them. How did that first one come about?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time sort of out and about during the week with my children, and a couple of my friends and I will do sort of play dates and little excursions and things. And one of the excursions we had on one of our Mondays together was to Barwon Heads, which is the town where the ice cream place is, and we happened to stop in for ice cream, and I have my camera with me basically all of the time. And so we took the camera in and I took some photographs of our girlies enjoying their ice creams, and I took a photograph of the gelato store's barista, who I later found out was the owner's dad, who makes all the coffees there. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous Italian family. I'm just in love with them. And so I posted one of the photographs that I'd taken that day to social media that night and tagged them. And I also sent a PM to the gelato store, sending them the picture of their father in the window, because it was just a lovely sort of authentic picture of him smiling candidly, and I thought they might appreciate it. And they said thank you, and just your standard niceties. And I didn't think much of it after that. It's sort of something that I regularly do. I like to sort of interact with the community and sort of pay it forward in that way where I can.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't for sort of a couple of months that I heard from Jessie, the owner of the gelato store, who reached out to me to say, oh, hey, I've been following your work on social media and it's awesome. We were thinking of maybe getting somebody in to document how how things look in the gelato store, and the fact that we make all our gelato on site, fresh every day, because they were thinking that's something that not very many people knew about their business.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be something that you'd be interested in? Could you do that, and how much would it cost us? And so I said, yeah, I do that. I can do that for you. So at the time, my sessions were $800, and I was doing an all-inclusive package where they get 30 digitals and 30 prints presented in a story box. So knowing that they didn't need the prints or anything like that, and knowing that this is a session that I felt like I really needed to do. I couldn't really put my finger on why, but I knew that it felt right.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the family, and I like the feel, and I love the culture of the place and their story. So I said, yep, I'm happy to do that for you. How do you feel about $400? I'll come and do that for you one morning. I'll stay a couple of hours and we'll make some beautiful photographs. And she said, yes, please, come.
Yeah.
So I went and did that and spent a couple of hours with them. I'd say 2-hour sessions. I always find it difficult to leave at the end of the 2 hours. I've usually got enough, but I just get so in my zone. So when I tell my husband I'll be back in a couple of hours, he goes, oh yeah, cool.
All right, we're running on Michelle time now.
Yeah, exactly. But I went to the store and sort of photographed them, and they had their little daughter there, and she had her mermaid costume on, and she was sort of frolicking and playing in the back of the store, and they were wearing, the mum was wearing the new baby, and, they had these 3 generations of family there, and they had people coming in and out, bustling like a Saturday morning in a gelato store, and it was just such a beautiful atmosphere, and it was just so homegrown and beautiful, and I found myself shooting their patrons and sort of reaching out to them and saying, hey, look, I've taken this photograph of your child. Get in touch and I'll send you a copy of it. And I did that. I sent quite a couple, I think maybe 3 people that first time I sent physical copies of their photograph, mounted as an 8x12 with a beautiful textured cotton paper, and sent it to their addresses. They reached out to me and I got their addresses and I sent it off to them. And that's led to more work as well, where I've shot a maternity session and a newborn session through that. I have a family session booked in. Jessie, the ice cream or the gelato store owner's sister, runs a florist, so I'm taking photographs for them. She sees a lot, her sister Daisy sees a lot of people coming in and out because she runs this florist. So I've had work through her. So it really has led to, sort of these people in the community, people who run stores, is what I've learned is that they're very active community members. They're right in the face of people every single day. So if you can make a connection, then you've got all these advocates out there, all these people who sort of who get you and want to share what you do. So I found that to be really eye-opening and beautiful.
And I love that it just literally was sparked because you were out with your kids and you brought your camera along like usual and you just did your thing, and that inspired action led to something that was truly such a big thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I need to make sure I don't stop doing that because we get it. I'm so busy. And it's tricky when you've got little ones because you really do feel all your time. Like this time that we're talking at now, this is sort of this is my after lunch hour. My son's in bed napping after his lunch, so I get sort of 2 hours now to do some work while he naps, and then he'll be awake again, and then it's sort of back to put my parenting hat back on, and so it's just these little pockets of time, and you're trying to fill it with all of these things and all of these ideas, and your listeners will totally relate. I'm sure they all
Oh,
have
I'm
sort of
sure.
to-do lists, a billion things long and little ideas that they've written down and stuff they need to get to. And it's just a matter of sort of finding the time to fit in all of these little, let the sparks light up, because some of them just have to wait their turn, but
Yes.
some of them just light up almost on their own, and then suddenly you've got a wildfire and you're just trying to keep up with it.
Yeah, and you never really know when that spark is going to flame up like that into such. And another thing that I love about what you're saying too is like going back to what you did with the patrons coming in. That is really cool that you gave such a nice print that you physically mailed to them. You didn't just say, "Here's a link to this high res file, go print it." I think
Yeah.
that is genius. That to me, like, I think that was such a smart move because it made people I think they were blown away probably when they got that mail. I know I would be.
Yeah. Yes,
Um,
mail for one thing is so wonderful, but I'm just a huge advocate of people printing photographs and them existing in real life instead of just on the screen.
mhm.
Because it just becomes a completely different thing when it's physical, and suddenly it's tangible and it's romantic and it's beautiful and it's a moment in time, and you get to see it constantly because it's right there in front of you when you walk down your hallway, or when you're in the kitchen, or when you sit down, or you're going to bed at night on the side of your bed. And yeah, it
Mm.
changes. It changes it from being this, virtual thing to being something real and something that influences your life quite in a profound way every day.
I agree. One of the things that stands out, this is something, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't remember. I'm like paraphrasing here. I think this was something you wrote on your own website and you shared the story, probably in the Goodbye Posing Guide group is where I saw it. And there was a line in there, and it was, this post was about printing or something like that. I don't even remember what the whole post was about, but I remember you saying something about having pictures on the walls of your kids, and the line that you said in there was, it lets them see that they are valued,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
along those lines. And that has stuck with me. And I've always been an advocate for printing too. And I talk about putting literal stories on your walls very much for the same reasons you were just saying. I mean, you round your corner after midnight, after a rough day in parenting, and you see all these stories that are reaffirmation that everything is okay. And I've always looked at that as such a selfish thing. But when you said that this is a way to show them that they are valued, like they
mm.
can look at these and look, my mom printed this out and chose to hang this of me. How cool.
Yeah,
Anyway, that,
absolutely. It
that
really
just popped
does.
into my brain.
And it's something that I get so excited about because I've seen it happen in real time with my children, like the sense of sort of self and belonging and identity that they get just from seeing themselves pictured on the walls of your home every day. It's just phenomenal, phenomenal, those benefits. So I wouldn't have thought of it as being, I had no intention that was going to happen. It was like what you said, like I was initially printing for me because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to see them, and it fills me with joy, and it gives me a little smile when I'm walking along the hallway. That it was going to be so important to them is something I hadn't anticipated, and it's just been so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. I'm going to switch gears because one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, I want to make sure that we cover, and that is because you've recently ran a couple of promotions in your business, one just before Christmas, one just before Valentine's, I think, end of January. And I would love if you could give us a little bit of background on both of those, if they were the same, different, what inspired them, how they worked for you. And I wanted to cover this because I know our audience is always wondering like what they can do to generate business, but they're always afraid of doing a model call and then nothing coming out of it after they do that freebie session, or they heavily discount and then they get a bunch of sessions with very little income coming out of it, and then they've had that burn where they've not seen anything on the other side of doing a bunch of discounted sessions. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about these promotions, because from you inspired the heck out of people. I can think of a couple people off the top of my head who then after reading this, did their own similar promotion. So it was almost like you started a little chain. And
It makes
so
me so happy that happened. So
yeah.
good.
What'd you say?
It makes me so happy that happens. It's
Oh,
just,
I know.
people can just be so, can really feed off one another's ideas and work. And
Yeah, so I wanted to put the spotlight like back to you on this and tell us about everything.
yeah, so I guess last year, towards the end of last year, I was feeling like my business had sort of, it wasn't growing, it was sort of stagnant. I was getting the occasional inquiry, and I was finding that back then when I was working on an inclusive package, which I felt like was the best and simplest way to do things, I was finding that the one-off larger investment of what was $800 at the time for me, it was too much for people to commit. For essentially what was an abstract product. They were having to hand over all of this money before they had even seen what they were purchasing. They'd seen my work, they knew they liked my work, they'd fallen in love with things that I'd said and photographs that I'd shared of other people, but they didn't know what it was for them and what it was going to mean for them. So I was trying to think of a different way to approach things where there'd be a lower risk for them. And it wasn't so much money. My goal in the first instance was just to figure out a way that I could make the exact same amount of money, $800, but to get more people through the door. So I came up with this idea of trialing sort of what I realized once I'd sort of planned it out was an in-person sales model. I decided to sort of try my hand at it as a Christmas special. So I wanted something that was going to get people excited and that was going to potentially draw in a lot of people who had been looking at my work for a while but felt like that investment of $800 was just a little bit too much for their family at this time when they didn't know what they were getting. And it went super well. I set up a model where they would pay $200 for the session fee, and they'd get it a 12 by 18 matted print gifted to them as a part of that session fee. And then they could choose from an investment guide or an a la carte menu what they would like to buy after the fact. And I found that I sort of presented it as a potential gift idea for Christmas. And I found that lots of husbands were contacting me, which was lovely because I've heard from more men than I'd ever heard from before. Usually it's women chasing up the photography, and to have dads involved has just been so nice.
Cool.
So dads sort of getting in touch and purchasing these vouchers that I made up for them to present to their wives on Christmas Day, as well as sisters. I've had a lot of sisters reaching out to get vouchers and purchasing a session for their sisters. So what I found was that $200 was this perfect figure where I felt like I was being paid for my time, but it was within the boundaries where it was reasonable for people to buy as a gift. It wasn't too much money. And then they kind of could look at the pricing guide and think, well, okay, if I don't like much at all, I don't have to buy much at all. I only have to buy what I love. And there are sort of like these lower price points that made them feel safe and secure that they wouldn't be investing this whole lot of money if they didn't want to. So it worked really well. I booked so well, in fact, from that Christmas special that I just changed my entire model to this $200. I don't do the gifted print. That was just for the promotion. It's just $200 session fee, and then it's buy what you love from the a la carte menu that I've made up. And I'm loving it so much because what it's allowing me to do is to provide the clients with what they want more so than ever before. I was doing the digitals and the 6x4 prints before, but 6x4 prints don't necessarily suit every person. And what I'm truly passionate about is getting photographs up on the walls. I want people looking at them every day, which doesn't really 6x4s. So it's meant a total sort of shifting in the business model and how I approach the business, and it's made me happier and more fulfilled in what I'm doing. And it's also it's clearly meeting my needs, my clients' needs better, because they're booking where previously they weren't.
So quick question that this popped up for me with this new business model.
Yeah.
Would you say, with being more all-inclusive prior to, did that put pressure on you when you were shooting, like thinking like, I have to perform to meet this value? And now with this lower entry point, do you feel like just more free? Like, do you feel like there's not as like money tied to what you're doing and you can just show up more as you? Or have you never really had that
You know what?
problem?
Not necessarily, in the sense that it has certainly affected how I shoot, but not like that. I've found
Mm.
that I am very much more aware of what photographs are going to work and what moments that I'm seeing unfold in front of me are going to work well with wall art.
Ah.
Whereas previously I wasn't, I was just shooting sort of without a purpose or goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was still getting beautiful moments, and I was still getting moments that could have worked as wall art, but I don't know, having this model and knowing that later on I'm going to really want to try to push um, documentary images loud and proud up on the wall, has made me really open my eyes to what I'm seeing in front of me in more ways than just just catching what's aesthetically the best moments that's happening in front of me. So that's in the back of my head now, and always the words, what is making this moment interesting? What is interesting about this moment
Mm-hmm.
um, when I'm shooting?
Yeah. Cool. So back to the promotions. How did you roll this out? I know that because I've seen it, but our listeners haven't. You created for both Christmas and then this last promotion a blog post
Yep.
that sort of gave all of the details. What
Yep.
else have you done to promote this? Just share it on social media? Did you email past clients or anything?
So no, I didn't, because I don't have a list yet,
Okay.
and you're going to smack me on the hand for that. It's on my list of things I have to do, but that list is long.
Yeah.
What I did was I made the blog post, and that is almost it, to be honest, because I post on social media so often.
Hmm.
What I found is that I have this really loyal and beautiful and open and helpful and trusting audience who are so willing and um, so open to helping me. So I made that Christmas blog post, and within sort of that evening of first posting it, I think it had been shared like, at least 8 times, um, by people who follow me. And even if they weren't necessarily planning to get a session because of whatever reason, they might have had one already, or they might just, it's not in their budget right now, but they've shared it on and said, this is amazing. Look at these photographs and it's so good and you're going to love this and jump on this, guys. And because of that, I reached a lot of people. I was so grateful that the people who I've met through social media as my page's audience are so giving and so kind and so generous with their support.
All right. So I've got this burning question that I know our audience is going to want to know, and they're going to want to know, how have you built that audience? How have you built such an organic, from what it sounds like, such an organic relationship with your followers? Aren't just a number. It sounds like there's a real connection with them.
Yeah.
Do you have any like secrets behind how you're sharing or how often or any of the things that we see asked often?
Yeah. So I share every day, or every other day at the most, unless there's something huge happening in my life that's keeping me away from the computer or what have you. I will try to post every day if I can. And the main reason for that is about the Facebook algorithms. I find that if I go more than 2 days without posting, I get less visibility.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a part of playing the Facebook game, really.
I've
But
noticed
the
that too.
benefit, pardon? Yeah. Yeah. The more you post, the more people will see it. And if you have this break of not posting, you become a little bit invisible, which
Mm-hmm.
is fixable. I've been there and fixed it. But it's become something you have to fix. Whereas if you maintain every day, it's less of a problem. You remain visible to people. And also the other obvious benefit of doing that is that you are in people's lives. sharing your day to day on sort of a constant and a constant way and in an authentic way. I guess I'm a kind of a bit of a heart on my sleeve kind of person. So I find being open and vulnerable quite easy compared to how others may feel about it. I was an English teacher in my past life, so I find words easier than some. I know some people find words tricky. And I'm blessed with being able to sort of articulate my thoughts in a written form quite well most times. So, I find that I share often. I share in a way that's personal or in a way that resonates with people. And through doing that, I've formed real relationships, which has been really enriching and has led to, a successful business, I think.
I mean, you honestly, like, just watching, the amount of work that you have blogged about and just the things that I've seen churn out from you, I never would have guessed that your business is so new. You have been amazing. I have one more question on the promotion.
Yep.
And that is, did you set any sort of limited time on it or anything like that, like creating any kind of sense of urgency? Or did you just let it go out there, let it share as organically as it did, reach as many people as it reached, and then just whatever came in, came in? Like, you didn't put a cap on that, or how did that work?
Yeah, so there was a natural cap on it in the sense that I was doing it as a promotion for Christmas.
Right.
People had to have sort of secured a session with me by a certain date so that I could prepare for them and send them the gift certificate to give to their loved one in time for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So it ran for 21 days
Mm-hmm.
From when it started to when it ended, but it was actually shorter than that so that I had time to send people their gift certificates in time for Christmas Day and for the Christmas holiday.
Was that a physical gift certificate?
It was, yeah. I made them through Canva and then printed through my photograph lab. So it was on photograph paper, and it had that beautiful matte finish of my photographs. It's the same as my photographs, and they were just lovely and beautiful. I printed them to 5x7 size, and they were just these gorgeous things. Actually, the client that I went to just the other day to do the session that they had booked at Christmas time, they still had the certificate on their fridge.
Cool.
Yeah, it was nice. It's nice. They're like, oh yeah, that's staying.
Yeah.
It says, let's catch some memories on it in big writing, and yeah, it made me really happy to see that. See that sitting there. And my goal at the time was, if I could book 5 sessions through that promotion, I could use the $200 session fees that they paid me to buy samples, so that then I could, by the time I actually did their sessions and went to see them, I would have samples of print products that I could present to them, and they could decide if they wanted to purchase something like that. So that was my goal, to do 5 to get $1,000 and to spend that $1,000 on sample product.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah. And so that's what I did, because I knew that having the actual sample product was going to be the key that might lead to them purchasing more physical stuff, because when they can see it in that tangible form, it was more likely that they were going to want that thing.
Yeah, Michelle, that's genius. I mean, I know I've been there where I've looked at sample things and I'm like, I don't want to. It feels like such a big out-of-pocket expense that is brilliant to actively work towards that with this promotion. So how many clients did you end up booking from this?
I think I booked 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw in the group that there was like...
Now, I think I've seen 7 of them. So I still have more to go. It was originally, I did put also a timer on the session. It was supposed to be to claim the session within the first 3 months of the year, because I wanted it to really fill that first part of the year, and then I was going to then plan what I'd do for the next part of the year to drop some more activity for them. But I got so much, and since then I've had that, kind of work leads to work. That's led to more stuff that I've been fitting in since then. And so it's just sort of filtering down, and people who are less urgent for their session now are happy for me to just
Mm-hmm.
sort of call them in a couple of months and talk about it then. And so it's sort of, it's becoming its own thing.
Buzzing away over there with business. I love it. All right. So the last couple of questions, I could just honestly continue talking to you forever. I had this long list of things I wanted to talk about, but I do want to go into the 2 iconic photos that you sent over to me. So for those of you listening, if you haven't heard some of my past episodes with guests, I invite them to submit an iconic picture or 2, so that way we can really get a feel for what their where their heart is inside of their work. And what I describe as an iconic photo is something that you might put on social media, and it might, or maybe you wouldn't even share it there. It doesn't really get a lot of response from other people, but you look at it and you are connected to it in such a personal, intimate way that nobody else is. So the first picture that I'm looking at, I see this little cutie pie laying on the floor and next to one of his learning to walk toys that all the kids at that age have. Michelle, tell us what's going on in this picture.
Bless his socks. I just love this baby so much. This is my son, August, and I took this picture after he'd had a very, very rough morning. You could say we'd both had a rough morning. He'd been up since all hours, and he was teething, and he was having one of those, I need to be held, or it's the end of the world days. And then when he's being held, he wanted to be on the ground, but then as soon as he was on the ground, he wanted to be held again. And we were both having a terrible day, if I'm completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was I went to the bathroom because sometimes you just got to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not happy with the fact that I'd gone to the bathroom. I put him down further away, and then I'd walk to the bathroom, and it went sort of quiet when I was in there. And when I came out, I found that he had sort of collapsed for a little tantrum and a little cry. And he does this, he buries his face in his hands when he's upset. And he'd done that, and he'd just been so exhausted from being up for so long and so upset that he just fell asleep like that. And I came out and I found him asleep like that. And I'd been having such a rough day. I'd intended a morning coffee with a friend, but I had to cancel because August just wasn't in a space where he could have been out in public. So we were both at home. We were both feeling frustrated. We were both feeling sort of on edge, and we weren't meeting each other's needs very well this day. And I came out and I saw him, and it was one of those moments where everything stops and there's suddenly this stillness, and you have this overwhelming moment of being so mindful and present. And I realized how fortunate I was and how lucky I was and how precious my son is.
Yeah.
And I just looked at my camera and I shot this photograph and took it and uploaded it and edited it while he was still on the floor there like that, and sent it to my husband, who was, I forget where he was. He was out for the day, which is unusual because he's a writer and he works from home. But yeah, this photograph to me is just everything about why I shoot. It has this, for me, this sense of sort of a nostalgia. I find that I feel nostalgia in moments instead of feeling it later on down the track, although I'm sure I'm going to feel it even more so later. But I feel nostalgia in an instant sort of way. And this gives me that feeling of nostalgia and love and longing and this sense of being so privileged, and creates this sense of appreciation for this moment and this time in our lives. I talk a lot about what I call the beautiful ordinary, which is, those day-to-day moments that we often take for granted. And this, to me, it embodies the beautiful ordinary. This is just one moment of a billion moments that I get to have every day, that is so ordinary, but is just so profoundly beautiful to me.
Mm-hmm. And it's what I really love, what I'm hearing through like reading between the lines or listening between the lines, I suppose, that, I mean, this isn't just, it's not even just that moment, but you really just told us an entire story. So it's not just this little thing that happened. It's this full-blown story and experience that is literally preserved for life through this.
Yeah.
Oh, I really
You know,
love
I struggle with being being mindful, and it's always this focus for me to be mindful and to be present and to feel all the things
Mhm.
at the time, and to really appreciate what I have. And I struggle with that every day, and I think we all do, but it's something that I'm obsessed with, sort of constant reminders of how lucky I am to
Yeah.
have this life, to have these beautiful babies,
I
to
know.
get
What a
these
gift we have
opportunities.
with our cameras that we probably had
Mm.
no idea we were actually that is what we were getting when we forked out the money for those cameras. What
Yes,
I mean, that
yes.
makes the
Suddenly their prices
money look
are up.
so small now, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. It's like nothing.
Yeah. So picture number 2, your sweet girl is just having a blast next to the
Yeah,
air conditioner. I
yeah.
think.
So this photograph for me creates those same feelings for me. It's very evocative in the sense of, um, the beautiful ordinary. This photograph is soft. She is. The air conditioner is lovely and sharp. Yay. Um, but I don't even care. When I first took it, I did care. I didn't edit this for 18 months or something.
Really? Yeah.
Yep, and I only printed it this year actually, and I printed it an afterthought as a sign of 5x7 size, and I put it in a collection of 5x7s that I have. And every time that I saw it, I fell more deeply in love with it, and it makes me laugh every time I see it. And her joy in this image is so contagious to me that I have since turned it into a 20x30. Um, that lives loud and proud on my wall that I get to see every day. And it just fills me with joy to see her so happy at something so simple, the air conditioner, the hot air from the air conditioner blowing her hair around. She's got a little ice block in her hands there. We were outside waiting for the storm to come. It was a summer afternoon, and it was muggy and humid and just as gross as it gets. And yet she still wanted to stand behind the hot air coming out of the air conditioner so that she could scream into it and hear her voice echo back at her, reverberating, and to feel her hair blowing around her face. It's just her joy in that moment just makes me realize just how wonderful life is. And that's why I shoot, so that I can remember that, and so that I've got that forever.
Mhm. Yeah, this one's one of those, and I guess I felt it too in the photo of your son, but it's it's interesting how, like, what composes a picture and how you feel about it. And I felt like the first one, it was so much more of this experience and story of that day. And this
Mm.
one, it's a little bit of the story of what's going on, but it's so much of her personality and emotion that you're seeing in this.
Yes, feeling. Yeah.
Mhm. So,
Mm.
I love these. So, thank you so much for being on here, Michelle. Can you tell everyone, first of all, everyone who is listening, you can go to fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast and then look for this episode so you can see these beautiful pictures that Michelle has. But before I let you go, Michelle, can you let everyone know where they can find you, your website and Instagram handle, all the places we can find you?
Sure. So my website is michellemckayphotographer.com. I am Michelle McKay Photographer on Instagram and on Facebook. So super easy to remember, just my name and photographer. And anyone can feel free to reach out at any point. I'm an open book. I've loved this chat so much. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, that's another thing. Man, see, I could just be like another thing and another thing. But
Anytime, seriously, we
yeah,
can just
yeah,
chat out.
well,
Yeah.
we need to have a whole full-blown conversation just about how you shoot because y'all, you have got to see this woman's work. It is so good. We've published her a couple of times on Fearless and Framed. I'll link to those in the show notes because it's just so good. But I wanted to say thank you, Michelle, because you you're so free in giving with the information about what you're doing in your business. Not everybody is like that. And I've just noticed how much you've shown up inside of the Goodbye Posing Guide group, and want to say thank you for that, because I know I will be the first to admit I haven't been as present in that group as I have been, and is literally people like you that have kept that group going and have created such an awesome energy in there. So thank you.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. I mean, that's how I've grown. Just people sharing and giving so willingly. It's how we all grow, I think.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next time we will talk more on the artist side. Sound good? Thank you to our podcast team for making the Intentional Documentary podcast possible. Our sound editor, Lucy Burgess, Minimag designer, Jillian Adriana, and our show notes manager, Ebony Rivera. Special thank you to our episode guests for openly sharing their insight, and thank you for listening, of course. Please hit the review tab to leave a rating. I'd love to read about your favorite episodes and what has really clicked for you. And remember, the only way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Photograph freely, and I'll see you next time. Visit fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast for this episode and all past episodes, show notes, and mini mags.